them down, so they don't have to. They spend the time doing
that's the NLP doing.
That's next version 2.0 is that.
The NLP will say, "Poor you."
Yeah.
Help is on the way.
There.
Yeah.
No, poor you.
Computer says no.
All cars are busy. You know.
Please call in half an hour.
Thanks so much, Kuba, for finding time.
Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure. So guys, so let's talk intelligence management.
Well, so the conversation you had before about the traditional way of doing kind of business intelligence was very heavyweight, where you constantly have to model the data and model the kind of the architecture of the ETL systems that transform and load the data into the intelligence analytic systems. And that's exactly right, that the AI can make it much more, well, lightweight in the beginning, but then as well more intelligent, right? Because the AI systems can on the fly adjust how they process the data and how they then merge the data and go through all of the steps of whatever the pipeline is. And so when they adjust on the fly, you can kind of reap the benefits of those systems constantly, right? Previously, if something changes, you always have this kind of gap between the change happening and then people actually adjusting the systems to work with the new data model, for example, right?
Kuba, you say AI has the ability to understand how data is related and make these connections. How is this achieved?
Right, so, well, obviously, as any good question, the answer is always, it depends. For certain applications where we work with unstructured data, which is for example textual data, so long documents of text. So we can use a type of AI called natural language processing, so NLP, that will actually understand the meaning of text, be it words or paragraphs or even whole documents, and then we can look at a lot of the documents in a lot of different systems, and we'll get to that kind of how this works in an architectural way. We look at the meaning of the different types of the unstructured data, and we can match and we can connect and merge different data sets based on this meaning. And that's the kind of the part of the intelligence that allows us to be flexible and nimble and adjust the algorithms and the data modeling on the fly.
Okay, we talked about the self-learning capabilities of an AI-driven business intelligence solution. Now, what does it mean with regard to like the deployment in an IT infrastructure? How does it combine with an existing, more complex IT landscape?
So, that's a very good question.
No, that you don't
Like
need to say. All of them are good.
Oh yeah, exactly.
You just say.
That's a particularly good question.
No, I want the answer.
Okay, not Vaseline.
Yeah, no bullshit bingo here. We want the direct.
Yeah, so a usual problem with
No, the typical, like just, I mean, what I think that what the cool thing is, I mean, you're not adding another layer that kind of can break systems. It's something on the side that provides value without
Any risks.
Yeah, without any risks. Just directly something like that in that.
And with minimal investment from the owner of the data, because they don't have to have a lot of resources invested in terms of people and time.
So now, on the corporate side, we often find complex enterprise IT architectures and landscapes. Now, how can you ensure that by adding such an AI-based solution that you don't disrupt the existing systems and processes?
Well, so because the AI is so flexible and can actually connect to anything without modifying the schemas or any data models that are already existing. It literally, you can imagine on the side of this architecture diagram, it connects directly to any system that it needs to, but it doesn't introduce any new dependencies, and it doesn't sit in the critical path anywhere in this architecture diagram.
Cool. So that means I can have whatever infrastructure in place. I add the new solution. It will simply reach into the different systems, like looking at the data but not changing anything, and providing its service on top.
Exactly.
And even if the system would, for some reason, be unavailable, for instance due to maintenance, it would not have an effect on any of the existing solutions. It would just mean that the additional benefits would not be available.
Exactly.
Now, what would be those benefits, and why do I want that solution?
Sell it.
No, not sell it. Say what's cool. We don't sell anything here.
We don't.
No.
No.
So because the system is able to reach into all the systems that it needs to, it can bring the right information to the right people and at the right time.
We talked like the AI, the artificial intelligence is able to understand the connections between a range of systems, of the data that is stored in these systems, and it can exactly provide you those links to data that you need for a specific process.
The links to data and actually the data that you need for this specific task that you're performing right now.
So is that a solution that actually manages the data, or it provides access to it?
So the management of the data stays with the systems that hold the data, right? So we don't, the systems, those AI systems, they actually don't change the data or modify it in any way. So the management of the data stays within the other systems that store the data. The AI system provides intelligent access to the pieces of data that are needed for a task.
So say we have a business workflow and we have like working, say, on customer demands. The AI solution could, based on a specific request, identify similar requests of the past, the documents that were prepared, and actually directly allow like the salesperson to utilize those and know directly where to look for it, rather than either not knowing that they exist or actually not knowing where they are, right? Which is, I would say, not an uncommon problem in larger enterprises.
Well, exactly. The typical use cases are with sales, with customer service, where the operator, they need to know an array of things to help the customer, for example, right? They would have to know the previous request that the customer made, what kind of machines the company sold to this client, how to fix this machine, etc., right? And all of those pieces of information actually live in different systems. And so by being able to reach into those systems and identify the correct piece of information, we can show those pieces of information to the operator, so they don't have to search for it themselves.
Okay, and from your experience at Untrite, is there a specific use case that you could maybe mention that shows how this happens in practice today? What would be a concrete use case from your experience?
So one of my favorite use cases is where the AI actually saves lives, is with how it can help how the police manages emergency calls. So when you call 999 or 911 in the US, when the operator talks with the citizen, they have to identify certain piece of information to then make the judgment of how they have to handle the situation. And they do it based on the information that they find in the systems that the police has access to.
Can you give some examples of what kind of systems you would access?
Yeah, right. Some of those systems are, past crime offenses, but as well vulnerable people database and child support databases, vehicle registrations, and there's many systems like that.
So a whole lot of systems that actually the AI has already kind of studied, and when the call comes, it is able from a specific conversation to extract the information and then make all these connections into the relevant systems.
Exactly.
In real time.
Exactly. So the AI will analyze the conversation and find, all right, this is a person's name, and they find that person in all of the relevant databases. So we can say, all right, this person has a crime record, and we know from that they have a weapon registered in their name, and they have a vehicle, and so all of this information can then be shared. They can be shown to the operator in real time, so they can make this decision while they're on the phone.
Imagine how many systems accesses are saved to that system.
Exactly, and it when you think about it, like the operator, they're under very serious time pressure, right? Someone's maybe shouting to them on the phone, or they're crying, they're very distressed. People, I think there's a saying in the police that no one calls 999 when they're like the best time in their lives, right? It's one of the worst times in their life, right? And so the operator, they have to remember, all right, for this kind of information, I have to search this past crime records, this vehicle registration, and this social services database. And the AI will make those decisions automatically by itself.
It will, but I think it's important to highlight that it doesn't really override human decision, right? Like it's eventually it's human who decides what to do.
Yeah. So this system is purely and you might call it an intelligence system that shows the intelligence about the situation to the operator, and that's it, right? And the operator actually makes the decision, make the risk assessment, and decides how to handle the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so AI.
I'm feeling safe already.
The power of AI, like giving the operator like 10 hands to, or actually
paralyzed.
10, like a number of virtual assistants that dig out all the information, and he can focus on his decision in real time. Is it serious, and what is the action that I have to take?
Mm-hmm.
And actually doing the kind of unique human thing, right? Connecting with the citizen, maybe calming them down, so they don't have to. They spend the time doing
that's the NLP doing.
That's next version 2.0 is that.
Yeah. The NLP will say, "Poor you."
Yeah.
Help is on the way.
There.
Yeah.
No, poor you.
Computer says no.
All cars are busy.
Please call in half an hour.
What we learned.
Dear
Ra-
kids.
Rather than, we don't always need to have a complex business intelligence solution for certain applications. We can use AI to learn the relevant connections between different sources of data on the fly, make these connections, show them to the operator, to a user, depending on a particular task he wants to solve, and allow such a system to be deployed without any major changes to the IT infrastructure. So you can always add this onto an existing IT infrastructure at
Minimum risk.
at minimum risk and minimum cost, or not so minimum cost.
Not so minimum.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So thank you so much for coming. So, bye.